Let me start today's class with a small story. Imagine a young student in Europe in the 1870s. He loves numbers. He spends hours solving mathematical problems. His teachers believe he will become a great mathematician. This student's name is Edmund Husserl. Now imagine something interesting. One day, the student begins asking a strange question. Not a question about numbers, but a question about thinking itself. He asks, how does the mind understand the numbers? How does the mind know anything at all? At first, this may sound like a small question, but actually, it is a huge philosophical question. Because if we want to understand knowledge, we must first understand how the mind experiences the world. So Husserl slowly begins to move from mathematics to philosophy. And this is where the story gets interesting. He meets great teachers, he receives strong criticism, and through many struggles, he finally develops a new way to study human experience. This new method becomes known as phenomenology. Phenomenology will later influence Heidegger, Sartre, and many other philosophers. So today we will follow the journey of a young mathematician who became one of the most important philosophers of the modern world. So let's dive into the story. And now let's start with our first slide. The life and growth of Edmund Husserl. Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth online class. Today's topic is the life and growth of Edmund Husserl. And the subtitle is How a Mathematician Became the Founder of Phenomenology. Let's start with a simple thought. Most philosophers do not begin as philosophers. They grow into philosophy. In fact, Husserl first wanted to become a scientist, nature scientist. But step by step, his questions became deeper, and eventually he created a new philosophical movement, phenomenology. So today we will follow his journey together. Let's take a closer look. Let me ask you a question. How does a mathematician become a philosopher? Well, philosophers are not born, they grow into philosophy, as I said just before. We can imagine this in 3 stages. First, student, curious and disciplined. A student asks many questions. For example, why does this happen? How does this work? So many questions. Second stage, thinker. The questions become deeper. Instead of asking how, we start asking why. Instead of asking what, we start asking why. Questions deepen. And the third stage, finally, philosopher. Now the thinker tries to build a new science of the mind. That is exactly what Husserl tried to do. Think about it for a moment. To understand Husserl's development, we will use 4 lenses. Time, place, study, influence. I think these 4 factors are very important, not only for Edmund Husserl, but also for everyone. You guys. Each element tells part of the story. For example, time. Time shows when his ideas appeared. Place. Place shows the intellectual environment. Study. Study shows what he learned. And influence. Influence shows who changed his thinking. Keep that in mind, please. Moravia. Husserl was born in 1859 in Prosteyov, Moravia. Today, this area is in the Czech Republic. In Korean, we call Czechia. Czech Republic. Yes, actually, Husserl is not from Germany, but from Czech Republic. But at the time, this area was controlled by Austria, the kingdom. Anyhow, his childhood was ordinary. But he had something special, a strong curiosity. He loved science, logic, and precise thinking. Imagine a child who constantly asks, how exactly does this work? That curiosity never disappeared. That curiosity will take us so far. Of course, that curiosity took him so far. Next place, Leipzig. You know what? There is a snack named called Leipzig in German. In Germany, yes. When I was in Germany, I liked to eat Leipzig, snack Leipzig. Okay, anyway, now we move to Leipzig University. This period is 1876 to 1878. Here Husserl studied astronomy, mathematics, and physics. One important mentor was Wilhelm Wundt. Professor Wundt was a pioneer of experimental psychology. So even early in his career, Husserl was already learning about how the human mind works. Yes, here is the interesting part. Next stage. So what did Husserl learn in Leipzig? Three important things. First, scientific method. Careful observation. Rigorous observation and verification. And second, analytical thinking. Breaking big problems into smaller parts. So analyzing. And the third, interest in psychology. How does the mind perceive things? At this point, Husserl still planned to become a scientist, not a philosopher. Yes, young Husserl wanted to be a scientist, a nature scientist, or at least mathematician. Therefore, next stage, the Berlin mathematics. Next, we move to Berlin. Here, Husserl studied advanced mathematics. His most important teacher was, at that time, Carl Weierstrass. Professor Weierstrass was famous for his mathematical rigor. This means every claim must be clear, precise, and logically proven. This word, rigor, the most important word, especially for phenomenology, and we can say important for philosophy. This style of thinking influenced Husserl deeply. So this is where things get serious. Mathematics shaped Husserl's thinking in three ways. First, precision. Every idea must be exact. Every claim must be exact and verifiable. And second, logical thinking. Logical structure. Ideas must follow one another. So rigorously. So as I said in previous slide, the word rigor is the most important word, right? So rigorously is very important. And the third, systematic thinking. Philosophy needs strong foundations, just like a building. Without a foundation, the building collapses, of course. It's natural. So mathematics teaches us these three things: precision, logical thinking, logical structure, and systematic thinking, systematic structure. Now Husserl moved to Vienna between 1881 and 1883. About 2 years or 3 years, he completed his PhD in mathematics. Yes, he got a doctorate in Vienna. His advisor was Leo Königsberger. At this moment, he had achieved his goal because he got a doctorate, right? There is no more higher level. But something still felt incomplete. Yes, something was still missing. He felt. Mathematics was powerful, but It did not explain how thinking itself works. Something was missing. And now, next, let's move on to the next stage and next area. Oh, yes. Soon Husserl returned to Vienna, and there he met a teacher who changed his life. I think this time is the most important to Husserl. And the event that he met this teacher was so important. It plays a very important role. The very teacher is Franz Brentano. Sometimes one teacher can change your entire direction, your entire life. For Husserl, that teacher was Brentano. This changed everything. What? Why? We can say that the Brentano is the most important teacher for Edmund Husserl. Because of just one word. Yes, Brentano taught one powerful idea. Consciousness is always directed toward something. So I want you guys to remember this sentence. Consciousness is always directed toward something. This means every thought has an object. What does it mean? Yes, I understand that you think of the question. If you see something, right? If you love someone. Without something, you cannot see. Without someone or something, you cannot love. This idea is called intentionality, or in German, Intentionalität. Intentionality in English, or Intentionalität. Because of this idea, Husserl's focus shifted from mathematics to structure of consciousness, philosophy. Yes, his focus moved from numbers and formal structure to the structure of consciousness itself. Yes, that's it. This is the change of direction. Now the direction changes. But, ooh, Hala University. Another important moment came from criticism. It's okay. He changed his direction. But uh, is there just only so positive future? No. There will be some problems. Yes. So criticism. A philosopher, his name is Gottlob Frege. I think you know or you heard once the name Frege. He is a very yes, one of the the most famous philosopher, analytic philosopher. The very philosopher, he criticized Husserl's book. And so Husserl wrote once a book, Philosophy of Arithmetic. So it is his first serious philosophical publication. However, Gottlob Frege, as I said just before, one of the greatest logicians of the era, yes, Frege said, Husserl confused logic with psychology. So at first, this criticism was painful. However, Husserl did something important. He listened, yes. He didn't ignore the criticism. He listened to the criticism and he improved his philosophy. This is the most important. This is the, yes, crucial moment. And he improved his philosophy. Criticism can make ideas stronger. Now we arrive at a turning point, Göttingen. Oh, yes, this. Let's read this slide. Frege sharply criticized the philosophy of arithmetic, calling Husserl's approach flawed and psychologistic. The breakthrough, instead of retreating, Husserl listened. The criticism pushed him to rethink his entire method, separate logic from psychology, and build a deeper and more rigorous philosophy. And now, he arrived at new world. Yes, Now we arrive at a turning point, his turning point in Göttingen. Husserl wrote his famous book, Zoological Investigations, the founding text of phenomenology. So I've heard that Heidegger's read this book so many times at home. He didn't return this book to the library about 2 years. Yes, I think Heidegger wanted to read this book alone. Yes, this book is so as great and as important as Heidegger so read many times. Phenomenology studies conscious experiences. In simple words, it asks, what does the experience look like from the inside? Now something new is born. So that Göttingen becomes the center of a new philosophical thinking. Young philosophers, the first students to travel to Göttingen specifically to study under Husserl. And a movement grows, phenomenology spreads across Europe, inspiring a new generation. Ideas take root. Consciousness, experience, and perception become central to philosophy. Yes, yes, now something new is born. Finally, Husserl moved to Freiburg. Here, his philosophy reached its mature form. One famous student studied with him. Who? Yes, he is Martin Heidegger. Husserl's most profound and ambitious work emerged here in Freiburg and at the Freiburg University. Freiburg University is yes, this is real, my alma mater. I got to doctorate at the Freiburg University. Husserl's ideas reach their first, most refined from in Freiburg. And Martin Heidegger, Husserl's most famous student, and Heidegger later developed his own revolutionary philosophy, yes, in a radically new direction. So Husserl's influence continued into the next generation. Yes. So Husserl found phenomenology and Heidegger developed it, the phenomenology. So we can say the story continues. Okay, Now, so what we can learn from Husserl's life? So very simple, we can organize this map. So first, he began as a scientist, right? Science gave him tools for rigorous thinking. And yes, he began from Moravia, now in Czech Republic. And he was born 1859. And the young, so a boy, Husserl, had a scientific curiosity. And yes, he went to Leipzig University, and his major was science. And under Professor Wundt, he ran the rigorously there. So we can say that it is a scientific attitude under Professor Wundt. In Berlin, he got a doctorate from the Weierstrass, the Professor Weierstrass. But at the time, he just a mathematician. His major was mathematics. But there comes the turning point in Vienna. He met the Professor Brentano, and he thought, and so he wanted to learn philosophy. Actually, not exactly philosophy, but logics, yeah, or psychology. And yes, anyway, so the places and teachers changed him, right? Each city opened a new door. So Wundt, Weierstrass, and Brentano. Or peer scholars like Frege. Now, Frege criticized the Husserl's work, and Husserl realized, okay, my work had something wrong. Then he was not just disappointed with himself, but he listened to the criticism from Frege, and he decided to start a new direction. In another way, yes. So, and he found a new philosophical movement called phenomenology. So early philosophy in Halle, and in Göttingen, the finally, so eventually phenomenology is born, and he developed and arrived at the Freiburg University, and he had at the time the student Martin Heidegger, and so the philosophy, the phenomenology, and start and developed it continuously. Yes, very interesting, right? So criticism sharpened his idea. Frege's challenge made his philosophy stronger, as I said. And finally, his philosophy is not born in a moment. It develops through a lifetime of thinking. So we can say the great ideas grow over time. Yes. So that's it. This is Husserl's The Rise and Growth of Edmund Husserl, the father of phenomenology. So now we there are something to say. So pick one key moment that forced Husserl to change his ideas. Consider these moments. First, Brentano in Vienna. Second, mathematics in Berlin. Third, Gottlob Frege's criticism. And first, logical investigations. So one of the greatest works that Martin Heidegger wanted to read and many times read. So how did the shift change his work and his core beliefs? Now it's your homework. Let me explain what is AI assignment this week. The goal of the AI assignment is this time to create a visual map of Husserl's intellectual journey. Yes, this is very simple. To reflect on his philosophical turning point. So, step 1, use AI to generate a Husserl timeline. Actually, you said, right? You saw that timeline like this. How about that, right? Moravia, Leipzig, Berlin, Vienna, Halle, Göttingen, Freiburg. So this is the journey of Edmund Husserl's. Okay, yeah, this is the prompt, AI prompt. You can use this prompt directly, or you can make your own prompt for the better result. Okay. And step 2, create your own Husserl life map using the AI tool. As a result, create your own clear visual diagram. You should correct, this is important, you should correct and modify the AI result and get an optimized result. So as many as you can do, right? And your map should show city study influence. For example, Leipzig, science, Bund, Berlin, mathematics, Biostrass, and Vienna, philosophy, Brentano. Actually, it's not philosophy, but psychology or logics. Psychology and logic is better. Yes, because Husserl didn't start with the philosophy in Vienna. And you may design it as a timeline or concept map, intellectual journey maps. Please use your own idea. So this assignment is very simple. It's to create some educational material to understand how is the Husserl's life. So step 3 occurs the one visual diagram file PDF. So ensure your final submission meets these criteria. Clearly labeled sections, and clean and readable layout. Okay, it's good. So, what can we learn from Husserl's life today? He began as a scientist. Actually, he was born as a normal boy, but his major was just astronomy and mathematics and so on. And science and mathematics provided him with the tools for rigor. Rigor is important. Yes, I have emphasized this many times. The places and teachers changed him, of course. Now we can feel so how important the teachers and place that we lived, that we met. So each city and each mentor opened a new door of thought. And of course, criticism. Criticism sharpened him. This applied for us, of course. There will be many different, difficult problems in my life, in our life. Yeah. But we can not ignore our problems. We cannot detour problems. We have to come over our problems, right? Then come the result that criticism sharpened us. So Frege's, so come back to Husserl's life. The Frege's challenge made Husserl's philosophy stronger. Philosophy is not born in a moment, it develops through a lifetime of thinking. Okay, thank you everyone. That's all for today. I thank you for your participation. We will meet next offline class. Okay, thank you. See you.